welcome back. My name is India and I happen to read a lot, and today we are going to be discussing all the books that I read in November. So November was a very interesting month. I felt that at the beginning of the month I was flying through books. I'd chosen loads of really small books. I was feeling really, really good. And then near to the end of the month, I was slacking a bit in regards to kind of how I read, because I only compare my reading speed to the month before or to the year before. So I started off very strong in November. Didn't do that bad, but I wasn't exactly where I wanted to be in November. I really, really quickly want to shout out two books in particular that technically have not counted towards my reading goal because they went up on Goodreads and it's too late now and I can't be bothered to do it retrospectively. And that is the Mr. Poirot and Little Miss Marple Mr. Men books. So fucking good. So good. These are just adaptations of Murder at the Vicarage and Death on the Nile in the kind of Agatha Christie world, and they are so much fun. They are actually genuinely really interesting and entertaining stories. So I would get these ones, guys. They are very, very good. But it's time to jump into the actual wrap-up. For those of you who maybe have never seen me before, I'd like to do my wrap-ups from my least favourite book and then end the video on a high with my favourite book of the month. So that is what we are also going to do today. None of that has ever changed. Let's get into it. So I've actually realised I've read more in the month than I thought I did, which is a great feeling. A great feeling. I forgot I read books on my Kindle because I brought down all my physical books. Crazy. So we're going to start off with the 2-star books first. And the first 2-star book, and unfortunately my least favourite book of the month, was The Fall of the House of Usher by Edgar Allan Poe. Now, I read this because for book group that month, we were reading What Moves the Dead by Kingfisher, which is a retelling of that book. So after I'd finished that, I thought, I need to go back and read the original text. This has been a kind of thing this year where I have read the retelling and then read the original text afterwards. See Hungerstone / Carmilla that I read earlier this year. So I was excited because I will say, spoiler for the rest of the video, thoroughly enjoyed What Moves the Dead. I was excited to see where the overlap was between T. Kingfisher's version and the original story. And just seeing, what was exaggerated, what was added, what was taken away. I really, really like doing that. And I read it on my Kindle. I got it for free thanks to Kindle Unlimited. And I read it literally within an hour, less than that. And it was fucking boring. It was awful. And I'm really, really sorry because I always feel bad. I'm very much not a classics person, even though I desperately wish I was. I find that a lot of people will laud classics and then I'll go around to reading them. And I'm just not classics inclined. I feel like if I was reading it back in the day, I can completely appreciate why it was great. Like I can completely appreciate the spooky atmosphere, the gothicness of the original tale that people back in that time would be like, this has never been done before. That I can appreciate. But as a modern reader, who especially after reading a modern not modern, but like still set in a kind of historical setting, but, written by a modern author, it just doesn't hit as well, And I feel that with a lot of classics, especially when I've read retellings, is I'll always prefer the oomph that modern writers give these books. And I fully appreciate that what Edgar Allan Poe was doing, not many people were doing around that time. And I can appreciate that within the context of what it is. But standalone as that, reading that after reading What Moves the Dead, boring. Really beautiful scenery and atmosphere writing. That is all I can say. So 2 stars. The next book I read, I've always wanted to read a bodice ripper kind of romance book. I've never read one before. And somebody on TikTok...
The best thing about this book is the side couple, which is a lesbian older couple who really want the main couple to bone and are trying to really make it happen. And this is hilarious.
And I thought that was absolutely hilarious. And I wanted to read it for myself. And that book was Duke for Hire by Nicola Davidson. It follows a young woman who is like 27 and her father is a vicar. And she's basically just a servant in her own house. And she wants to explore the world and she wants to have sex and she, wants to get married. She wants all of that, but she just knows that her father will never allow that, not only because he's a religious man, but also he's loving the idea of his daughter waiting upon him like a servant. So she works with her aunts to proposition the Duke of where they live to basically have sex with her for a couple of times so she can get that experience out of her system and then she can go about her life. But obviously it's a romance, so they fall in love. I desperately wanted to love this. It was actually so much fun to read it, but it just lacked in so many other ways. I really like the characters, I just needed more. I really liked the story, I just needed more. I thought what they were trying to do, what the author was trying to do was interesting. I just needed more. Like, I feel like I was kind of reading like maybe like a first draft, because it was good. Like, I had a fun time, but there was nothing about it that I could really scream from the rooftops outside of, oh, this is fun, this is funny, and I just wanted more. So unfortunately, it's a 2 stars, because like, it's just a book that I read. If it had been expanded upon more, if we had more time with our characters, if we had more time in the romance, because they had good chemistry, it would have been more, but I can't give it anything higher than a 2. But I am intrigued to read more of Nicola Davidson's work. Moving on now to the 3.5 stars, we have a very cool collection. First up, we have Weird Things Customers Say in Bookshops. This was a very cathartic read for me as someone who is a bookseller, because I can picture pretty much, I'd say about 70% of what was written in this book. I have had that experience with customers before. So it was very much just a cathartic, quick read where I could laugh and go, haha, that's happened to me. Yes, I probably will just donate this straight away though. Then we have Every Day I Read by Hwang Bo-Reum. As you can see, I did a lot of annotations for this. I read Hwang Bo-Reum's Welcome to the Hyunnam-dong Bookshop like 2 years ago, maybe? And it was one of my favourite books of that year. I absolutely adored it. It's this amazing, cozy fiction about a woman divorcing her husband and kind of starting her life again and opening up her own bookshop. Loved it. This is a collection of essays, which was actually, I believe, the first published work of the author. But we've only just received it in the UK, but it was published first in Korea. And it's a series of 52 essays on reading, how to maintain reading, how to inspire yourself by reading. So it was really, really cute. I really liked quite a lot of what was in there. I will say, as someone who, you know, has a YouTube channel, has social media platforms, has been a bookseller now, I'm in my 5th Christmas. I has read consistently over 100 books over the last 3, maybe 4 years now, 3 years at least. A lot of what was in here was really, really nice if you're like getting into reading, which is what I think it's more for. For me and myself, as someone who, you know, reads a lot and has a lot of books under her belt, a lot of this I already knew. So what I really enjoyed, and I really enjoyed the sentiment, and I would recommend this to anybody that's trying to get back into reading or has just fallen back in love with reading or fallen in love with reading in general and just is obsessed with kind of the book world. This I would really recommend you read. It does make you feel inspired to go out and read more, but there was a lot of stuff in there that I felt was kind of very surface level for someone like me, and I wanted her to dive in a little bit deeper, to be honest. That being said, I always am very intrigued to see what other authors read, and bearing in mind with what she's written, which is Welcome to the Hyunnam-dong Bookshop, some of the books that she's a very big non-fiction reader, and some of the fiction books that inspired her to be a writer is very different from what she actually writes, and I thought that was very, very interesting. I am going to make a post at some point of all the books, or nearly all the books, because I probably missed some, that she has read and mentioned in this book. And then the final one for 3.5 stars is Inuyasha Volume 2. This is 2 years in the making. 2 years ago, I read Inuyasha Volume 1. I think I read it, 2 years ago, because last year I did my 30 manga volumes in 30 days, and then the year before, I did, January was the year of manga to like kickstart my reading goal, and I read Volume 1. This was half good, half didn't care for. I think it started off with a volume or a couple of chapters that I found to be quite boring. There's like a sibling villain duo, and I didn't care for that story. I'll be honest, I'm only really here for the romance between Kagome and Inuyasha, and I know that's not the takeaway. Like, I want to focus on Kagome's growth as a character and their romance, and that first chapter was kind of not any of that, for me personally. So we started off on the wrong foot. Then in the middle, it got super juicy. Really interesting plot points. Kagome is the reincarnation of this hero called Kikyo. Well, she's her descendant, basically. And then you find out that there was more to Kikyo, and Inuyasha's relationship than you originally thought, which I thought was incredibly interesting. And then the ending was kind of okay, like interesting enough. And I just felt that I loved the middle so much. The middle would have been a 5-star, but the beginning and the end, I kind of didn't really care for those stories. So it ended up being 3.5 stars. Moving on now to my 4-star books. First one is The Raven Boys by Maggie Stiefvater. And this is adapted by Stephanie Williams and illustrated by Sass Milledge. Bit of lore for you. I run a sci-fi fantasy book group, but before that it was a YA book group. Don't ask me why. I think it was just the timings that we did it. We thought maybe it would attract more YA readers, and then we realized it was only attracting fantasy readers. It changed to a fantasy book group. And one of the books that we tried to read when it was a YA book group was The Raven Boys. And I DNF'd it. And that, I believe, was the beginning of a theme where I run the sci-fi fantasy book group, but I DNF a lot of the books. Anyway, so I really liked the idea of reading the graphic novel because I didn't finish The Raven Boys. And after our conversation in the book group, I was like, oh, this story actually sounds really good. I just could not get into the story. So I was very intrigued to read this. I would give it a 5 out of 5 stars for illustration, 5 out of 5 stars for plot points. The reason it was deducted a star was I did think, having read like the first 25% of the book, because it's adapted from a novel, a lot of stuff I feel is missing, and we would skip quite a lot of what felt like important story because we have to adapt it into a graphic novel. I think that's just the case of adapting it into a graphic novel. So it definitely made me appreciate the story more. I wouldn't say that I'm obsessed with the Raven Boys series as much as other people are. There's some kind of cliched, kind of feels a little bit like, oh god, all right, you're a rich guy that's obsessed with a Welsh king, like, things that Tumblr would have eaten up. I understand why it was big on Tumblr, but as adaptations go, I think it did a good job. I really love this book as a piece of art. I think it's really good, and I liked the story overall. I just think in general there's just one thing missing for me across the series, and I don't really know what it is. But if they do bring out a second book, I will read it because I'm intrigued enough to continue. Then we have Berserk Volume 3. I started reading Berserk at the beginning of the year and I forgot it can get quite dark. Berserk follows a swordsman who's a kind of weirdly on the run, but also destroys demons and is a bit complicated. And Volume 3 is the end of one arc and the introduction of our main villain, who has a backstory with our main character. And the last part of the volume is more about Guts' childhood, which check fucking trigger warnings. Check trigger warnings for that, because I think I read the last couple of panels and I was like, this is gonna get intense. So I might need a little bit of a break between Volume 3 and Volume 4, but I really find Kentaro Miura's, I believe that's his name's, art style to be incredibly interesting. Especially when you put something as kind of clean cut and set across as this. There's a lot of fine lines that go into Berserk, and it's just a very interesting art style, which I really like. I haven't read much grim dark stuff, so it's cool to kind of go into a realm of fantasy that I don't read that much. And I am intrigued kind of by the story and the world and the plot, so I will continue. I did actually overall really, really enjoy it, and I think it talks about morals and sin really interestingly, but might need a break between the end of Volume 3 and what is to probably be expected in Volume 4. And finally, the last 4-star book for November was The Christmas Clue by Nicola Upton. I have only got, and please check out my December 2025 TBR, because I thought that this December was going to be the year of Christmas books, like it was last December, but this December is more New Year's Eve books. But I did read a Christmas book in November. This is inspired by the couple who created Cluedo, and Nicola Upton has created a fake murder mystery, like a fake story, fake murder background to why the couple decided to create Cluedo. And it follows a couple that before the Second World War had consistently gone to this hotel to run murder mystery themed games at Christmas. And it was a joy of theirs, and they had so many fond memories. And they get invited in the middle of World War II to go back and host a murder mystery night, except for when they go to visit their good friend and local sweet shop owner, they find her dead, and they take it upon themselves to kind of figure out who it is that killed her. And yeah, all the events end up inspiring them to write Cluedo, and it's a really, really interesting, I wouldn't say it's cozy. I spoke to a lot of people about this when I was reading it, saying like, oh my god guys, it's really, really cozy. And then halfway through, the fucking switch flicks and you're like, oh, there's actually a very severe dark undertone to this book. But it does still feel Christmassy. But yeah, this was really good. It's actually very short. It's a great plot. You still do feel Christmassy despite all the murder that happens. And yeah, I just think it's a very good, solid standalone. And if you're a board game lover and a Cluedo lover, you'll enjoy this. And then we move to my 5-star books, my favourite books of the month. These are two very, very different books, but I had such a great time reading them. First up is What Moves the Dead by T. Kingfisher. I've already briefly earlier on in this video explained what this is. This is a retelling of The Fall of the House of Usher, which by the time I'd read this, as you already know, I had no context. I knew nothing about the original tale. So I went into this kind of blind to what to expect. And this was just so good. I, this year, have gone on a bit of a T. Kingfisher, thing. I've read a lot of T. Kingfisher's fantasy books. I haven't read much horror. And this was absolutely incredible. So much happens in such a short amount of time, but you don't feel rushed. You don't feel that T. Kingfisher is wasting any time. It feels perfectly paced, perfectly plotted, great characters, interesting world building, interesting discussions of gender, which I'm amazed that T. Kingfisher managed to portray gender in such an interesting way, while also covering all these plot beats of this story. So good. Great atmosphere, interesting characters. I just realised I love eco-horror, specifically anything to do with mold and mushrooms. I love you. If you're a fan of Mexican Gothic, you will really, really enjoy this. It follows a soldier who has been invited to the childhood home of their childhood friends, and they make their way over to the house. House vibes awful. And it's there that they meet their two childhood friends who are so full of life and energy and healthy. And these two people look like they are on death's fucking doors. And they take it upon themselves to figure out what is plaguing this house and what is plaguing their friends. And it's just so fucking good. 10 out of 10 read, this one right here. And then finally, if you've seen my mini vlog when I went to Bath with Harry, you'll know this is the book that I picked up there. This is All the Sinners Bleed by S.A. Cosby. I am not a big thriller reader. If I tell you, I read murder mysteries, it will be historical or it will be cozy. I don't read many modern day thrillers, contemporary thrillers. They're not my vibe, because 9 times out of 10, I kind of think that they're the same old, same old. I'm a down and out detective. My wife's left me. I have a drinking problem. I'm going to solve a murder. All right. I don't read many of them, but loads of my mutuals have been saying that this was one of the best thrillers that they've read. And S.A. Cosby, I found a video of him on TikTok talking about getting his first royalty check, and he came across so genuine and funny, and I like to support authors that seem very genuine and funny, and also when there's such a juxtaposition to kind of the content you hear them write about. So I really wanted to read this book, so I got it in Bath. It was, I went up a ladder, it was very scary, but I got it and it was good. And this follows Titus Crown. I always forget, I forget half the bloody details after I read them. It follows Titus Crown. He is the first black sheriff in his county, and he is dealing with a whole lot of shit. He's dealing with racism in the police force, racism from his constituents. He is dealing with general crime. He's dealing with, still dealing with the death of his mother, all this kind of stuff. And one day, the son of one of his good friends shoots a very beloved teacher at school and leads them to have a look at this teacher's background. This then opens up a massive can of worms, and there seems to be a serial killer. It makes sense. It does make sense. It does connect. That is plaguing the county, and Titus has to take it upon himself to obviously find out who the serial killer is. We're also dealing with a community that doesn't want you there, doesn't respect you, doesn't like you, doesn't respect your badge, doesn't respect you as a person, and dealing with his own family issues. It is a harrowing read. This is not a read where you sit there and you go, I'm just going to open up a couple of chapters. It will literally engulf you, and then you cannot read anything else and you cannot put it down. But also, I didn't think I was going to finish it at first. I read the first couple of chapters and it gets dark really quickly in the first couple of chapters, and I was like, do I have the courage to continue reading this. But I did. I finished it. My favourite book of the month. It was genuinely incredible. I will shout about this book from the rooftops. I think everybody should read it. And also, it's good to have your expectations and what you think you enjoy and you don't enjoy to be told, actually, Queen, you can read other things. Not all detective thrillers are that bad. But yes, thank you so much for watching. We are one wrap-up away for the end of 2025 wrap-ups, which is crazy. I would check out my December 2025 TBR, which is a lot smaller. Like, you will not be getting these numbers in the December wrap-up because I like to do all of my end-of-year stuff very, very early. So I do try to, like, fly through books quite quickly, but we'll see. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe and all that fun stuff. And I will see you in the next video.